Okay, that's enough of that. I just wanted to get us in the mood today because today we're talking about grouping basics, but we're going to use a Pac-Man table because that sounds like more fun than a banking application to me. Okay, so you use a select statement to get rows from the database, right? Easy enough. There we go. We have rows from our table. You use groups to summarize your data. This is each individual row, and while that's great from a data perspective, it doesn't really tell us any extra information. You know, we might want to see, you know, just how many different, say, categories of things eaten in thing type eatens. I don't know how to pluralize that, but so let's just do a simple group by here. We've got thing eaten, thing type eaten, and points gained, and we're going to group by those. And here we go. So we've got a row for banana and fruit, 150 points. And we don't know how many rows in the table have that combination of things, banana, fruit, and 150. And ditto for all these. But right now we're just getting information on the categories themselves. Okay, great. We've got a list. Now if you want more information about your data, you're going to use aggregate functions like count and sum. And there are a bunch of others, minimum, min, and max. What have you. Of course I'm going to go blank while I'm recording. Oh, average is another good one. But let's take a simple case. Let's say we want to know for each group how many rows are there for banana, fruit, and 150, regardless of the other information that might be. You know, we're not worried about ID or game time or anything else. We want to know how many rows we have, and let's go ahead and sum our points. This is a Pac-Man game. We want to sum up how we're doing. So let's run this and say, okay, for banana, we only have one banana eaten, so that's only 150 points total. But we have a whole lot of little dots eaten, 8 different little dots, and that got us 80 points. And the way we did that was we didn't have to change our group by at all. We just added count and sum of points gained. And you've got count star in here. There's a little bit of controversy that goes along with count star. Some people say you should use an actual column name and so forth. There's an article I'll have to look up and post in the blog about that. That count star rather is actually better in a lot of respects, having to do with indexes. But like I'm not going to say it here. I'll just post the link for you. But back to our grouping basics. We've got our what we're grouping by down here, thing eaten, thing type eaten, points gained. We've got our aggregates. I went ahead and added an order by clause because it really helps for readability, not to have all your stuff mixed up. In this case, again, order by isn't required when you're grouping. It's just for readability. But I'm grouping by, or ordering rather, by the type first, and then the thing itself second, because I want similar things, types close to each other. Another thing to notice about the select statement, for my aggregates, I've added a column name for each one, again for readability, so it'll show up here. If you don't have them, it's not that big a thing. It's just not going to look as pretty when all is said and done. There you go, see, no column name. So I'm going to put those back in there. Another thing for you to notice is that our select statement looks exactly like our group by, and that's a good thing. As a matter of fact, it's kind of required. When you use a group by, everything up in your select needs to either be an aggregate or something that's contained in the group by. Let's work out why this is and give an example. Let's take our same query and we're going to add ID to the mix and try and run it. We haven't changed anything else, only added ID to the select. We got an error back. ID is invalid in the select list because it's not contained in either an aggregate function or in the group by clause. Work it out logically. What you're essentially asking SQL to do is say, give me groups of information, and I want you to divide those out by thing eaten, thing type, and points gained. So we've got our summary, right? This is our summary information. And down here you're saying, oh yeah, and also give me individual row information, the individual row ID. It's not something that can be done. Well, not here in this context. We'll work out another way to do that some other time. But here, you're telling it to do something impossible. I want a summary and individual information. It doesn't work like that. The next thing we want to look at is that we're controlling the level at which we group our information. Up until now, we've been saying, okay, I want to create groups of similar things eaten, thing type eaten, and points gained. But if I want a higher level view, I can narrow that down and just group based off of thing type eaten. So the dots will be in one group, the fruit will be in another group, the ghosts will be in one single group. Now when you do that, you'll want to remove the references to the other two columns from everywhere in your query. Let's go ahead and build this query to show you what I mean, instead of just using it preformed. So let's get rid of the ID, that gave us an error. Let's say we just want to group by thing type eaten. Well, we're going to have to take thing eaten out and points gained out, and we're going to have to take it out of the group by too. And out of the order by. And that should, if I got it right, run beautifully. So we have 9 rows of dots, 2 rows of fruit, and 3 rows of ghosts. And you can play around with that too, by the way. You can, if you want to, keep things in the group by list that aren't in the select. It's easily possible to group by something and simply not have returned, what you're grouping by visibly. But, that doesn't do much for you for readability. Another thing we can play around with, here, let's take this again. And this is a little bonus piece right here. Let's say we want to only group by thing type eaten, but we still want a little bit of information elsewise. Let's say we want the max thing eaten, so whatever the greatest is going to be alphabetically, and the max points gained, and I'm going to go ahead and give those names. Max points gained, and if you want to make it pretty and even more readable because you're just like that, go like that, and then max thing eaten. And we're still only grouping by thing type eaten. We can keep thing eaten in there because now we're doing an aggregate query. We're saying, okay, give me the greatest thing eaten. It's the greatest thing ever. So little dot. And when we say greatest, the max, don't get confused. This has nothing to do with the points that you're looking at. Max only refers to the column it's working on. So between big dot and little dot is later on in the alphabet, so that's the max. If you were to say min, and we better change this so I don't get confused. Again, just for readability. Can't say that enough apparently. Then big dot is going to be the min, and it's good to know that up here we haven't like summarized or anything like that. Anyway, so there you go. That's grouping basics. Let's review real quick. Main points here. Group by allows you to summarize your data. You're collapsing rows together. You can use aggregate functions to get more information. You can count, sum, av, min, max. Go ahead and look in BOL. There's a whole list of them. Order by is useful, but not at all required. When you're using group by, everything in the select statement has to be in the group by, or else it has to be an aggregate. And finally, you can get a more detailed summary of your data by grouping by more columns, or a higher level view by grouping with fewer columns. And that's about it. Okay, just one or two more things. I looked over the video and it sounds to me like I'm saying that the order of group by matters compared to the order of the select list. No, it doesn't matter at all. When you're grouping, and the order you're doing it in has absolutely no effect on anything. And the only difference that your select list ordering is going to make is in how it shows up down here. So group by has to look like select. I mean, they need to contain the same columns, plus select can have aggregates. And finally, for category completion, I watched the whole video and I started to get really weirded out because I never said, let's get the total score for our game. Select count points gained from Pac-Man. Yeah, that's... Wait a second. Oh, select count. No, that's not what I'm looking for. It's easy to get that confused. We want a summary of all our points to get our total score for the game. 730 points. That's a really pathetic game. Okay, now that's all I got.